Good evening, everyone. Yes. All right, before we begin our study this evening over the book of Hosea, let's go to God in a word of prayer. Lord, thank you once again for this wonderful day that you've blessed us with and this wonderful opportunity that you've blessed us with as well. Lord, help us to be able to learn from the story that we're about to study. Lord, help us to learn that we need to set aside these worldly things and worldly idols, Lord, and keep our eyes focused on you and keep um, you in the rightful position in our life, Lord, and to not put you in the back seat or make you second in life, Lord, but to ensure that you're always in your proper place, Lord, and as the key and the most important part of our life, centered around you, Lord. So just be with us this evening as we go throughout this study. Be with us as we go throughout the rest of our week, and those that we know that are on our sick list that are dealing with different things, Lord. We pray that you can be with them. Lord, help us to be an encouragement to them and to other people that we come into contact with, Lord, and just help us to never be afraid to share the saving power of your word. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So last week we went over a little bit of chapter 1 and a little, I guess, probably about half of chapter 2 of the book of Hosea as we continue through our lessons over the minor prophets. Today we're pretty much going to go all the way back through all of chapter 2. The beginning part will be a little bit of a refresh for some of the folks that were here last week, but we had a little bit of a lower turnout last week. So we're going to go back over it because a lot of people that are here today might not have been here last week. It did turn on me, by the way. It went to Daniel when you walked by. For those that can't see, my Bible is just weirdly curling as I keep talking up here. I don't really know what's going on. But the first part will be a little bit of a refresh, but it'll be good because it plays into the second half. And then hopefully we'll be able to get into chapter 3 as well, but we shall see. And so, as we go through the book of Hosea, that what they're basically dealing with is they're going after idols, and essentially they're forsaking God. They have the calf worship and they have Baal worship as well. And you've got the northern and the southern kingdom mentioned there at the beginning of chapter 1. And essentially, God has told Hosea to take a wife of harlotry, of whoredom, of something of that nature, whichever word your version wants to use. But essentially, someone who is basically in an adulterous relationship, I guess you could say, which is an example or is a representation of what Israel is currently doing with God. And so the way that Hosea would marry Gomer, who is going to be a harlot and things of that nature, is the same way that the nation is acting with God. They've now forsaken their marriage with God and they're going after idols. The same way that Gomer is going to forsake her marriage with Hosea and go after her lovers. And so it's a play on both. And so when you see your mother or wife or husband, keep in mind that um, in this text and in this study, it's using that as a representation of the nation of Israel and their relationship with God. And so it's playing on both of those. And so he's using something that is actually taking place as an example, essentially, of what is going on. And so Hosea gets to live out what the nation of Israel is doing to God with his wife, which is, I'm sure, delightful for him. And so as we start here in chapter 2, it repeats some of the things that we said before. And there's three kids born to Gomer. And you have one of them that is actually credited to Hosea. The other two are not credited per se to anybody, and so you could presume that they are from a different person. But one of them is called "You Are Not My People," and the other one is called "Have No Mercy." And so you have two different names mentioned. And here at the start of chapter 2, it says, "Say to your brothers, you are my people, and to your sisters, you have received mercy." So what God is really trying to get at here is that they've gone through all these things, and we've talked about the two different meanings of Jezreel. One is to sow, and one is to scatter. And so one's in a negative sense, and one's in a positive sense. And so here it says, "Say to your brothers, you are my people, and to your sisters, you have received mercy." And so now the phrase of "you are not my people" is going to become "my people." Now it's going to happen later on because they're going to get carried off into captivity. But that name is going to be changed. And you've seen God do this throughout different stories in the Old Testament. But the name is going to receive a change. At one point, they are going to be, currently, they are not his people. But soon, when they do come back out of captivity, they will be his people. The same thing it says, and you have received mercy. Remember, the name before was, you will have no mercy, or she has not obtained mercy. or compassion. So now they are going to. And right here in chapter 2, this is chapter 2, verse 2. This is something we really talked about a little bit last week. We should probably expand further on it. But at the beginning of verse 2, it says, plead with your mother. Plead. Now, if you remember who Hosea is talking about here, who is the mother in this sense? He's not saying, hey, go talk to your mom and tell her this. Who is the actual mother that he's really trying to get at here? I got one right answer on the other side. It's the nation. Go and plead with your nation. Go and plead what? Why should you go and plead? For she is not my wife. Well, what does that mean? Why is the nation? Why is the mother no longer the wife? Why is he no longer the husband? It says, I am not her husband, that she put away her whoring from her face and her adultery from between her breasts. So what has she done? She's now gone away from God. And so she's no longer the wife, and he's no longer the husband because they've now forsaken the marriage that they've had. Go and plead with your nation. Put this in today's sense. Go and plead with your nation. I think everyone here, outside of maybe one, is truly from America, born in America, whatever you could say. But whatever nation you could be in, go and plead to the world what? That we need to get right, that we need to be right with God. Do we have people forsaking their relationship with God in today's world? Do we have people saying, oh, yeah, I'm all for God, but then they go and they have all these other idols and all these other things going on in their life that is really their priority, and they just use God kind of as like this makes me feel like a better person, but, it's just kind of a side thing. Well, of course we have that in our world today. We can be caught up with that if we're not careful. So he says, go and plead. We don't plead enough today. I hit on that last week. We do not plead enough today. We should be pleading more. Everyone in the congregation should be pleading. That's evangelism, because you should be pleading with people that they need to turn and get right with God, pleading with people to come to service, pleading with people to pray more with God, pleading with people to drop their sin and receive forgiveness and mercy and goodness from God. Pleading. Family, friends, coworkers, whoever you may be around with, plead. In the New Testament, Paul, always in Jesus as well, but he goes and now I'm going to blank on the word of it. He doesn't plea. Someone help me out. Doesn't contend. Beseech, yes. It's not the word I was looking for, but yes. He goes and yeah, it's not the word I was looking for, but yes, it is what he does. He goes and he contends with the people. He gives them the message, and he is trying to show them the truth out of the message. And that's what we should be doing as well. We should be pleading with people. We should be encouraging people, and the pleading should not be it should not be anger spewing out of our mouth. It should be a sense of love, which we'll see here in a second, going on into chapter 3. But plea with the nation, plea with the people around you, that they need to put away the whoring from her face, or the harlotry from their face. Now, this could mention the painted face that they could have potentially had, but also if you look at Ezekiel 16, verse 25, which we'll mention Ezekiel a couple of times if you want to kind of put your thumb around chapter 16. But in Ezekiel 16, verse 25, it says, at the head of every street you built your lofty place and made your beauty an abomination. Now, what were they? They're in the middle of prosperity. We talked about this in some of our past minor prophet studies, but they're living good. They've got ivory houses. Boy, they've got all this wealth. They have all these things. And here, if you're looking at Ezekiel, it says, you built up your lofty places and made your beauty what? An abomination. Offering yourself to any passerby and multiplying your whoring, your harlotry. You're multiplying these things. You're not using what God is giving you. Instead, you're seeking out things that are wrong. Then it goes on, it says, in her adultery from between her breast. It could be them embracing a lover, as it's going to kind of mention later on. But it could be something that their jewelry that they're wearing, because here later on it's going to mention the fact that they're wearing a lot of jewelry because of Baal worship. So there's a whole bunch of different things they have going on, but God is telling them to put these things away and do what? Get back right with Him. we have these exact same things, maybe slightly different because of the way that the world is now. We have technology and things like the way that the world kind of works now is slightly different, right? But we still have the exact same sin problems. We still have the same root cause. When you go and you read the Sermon on the Mount and God is telling them, you say this, but I say this, those same principles, those same roots that are causing these sins to spew up are still the exact same roots. They've not changed. They might look a little bit different today, but they're still the same. We need to put away those things and get right with Him. And then here in verse 3 it says, if you don't put these away, he says, lest I strip her what? Naked and make her in the days that she was born. Again, if you compare this to Ezekiel 16, verse 39 this time, and it says, I will give you into their hands, and they shall throw down your vaulted chambers and break down your lofty places. They shall strip you out of your clothes and take your beautiful jewels and leave you naked and bare. What are the Assyrians going to do whenever they come in and take over the land? Are they going to let the Israelites in the northern kingdom, southern kingdom, just keep all of their precious things and their houses and their way of living? Are they just going to let everything just stay the same? No. If I don't know, say if a foreign country comes and takes over America tomorrow, I don't know. Are they going to let us keep everything? No. Different rule, different law. Things would change. So it says, lest I strip her naked. Now, if you go back and you look at some of this, there could be some evidence that would potentially suggest that one of the punishments before you are um, stoned for being an adulterer, but they would strip you naked. That'd be another thing. And it would be playing off of something that they would already know. But when you really think about this, they're going to be stripped from everything that they've had. And if you go to look at the later verses, and make her in the days that she was born. When was the nation born? And how was the nation born? And what was their living circumstances? Remember, we're talking about the nation. Where did they come out of? Captivity. And where did they first live? Wilderness, which can be mentioned later on. Did they have all these fancy things when they first became a nation? When they came out of captivity the first time, did they have all these wonderful, high, lofty places? Were they worshiping all these Baal gods? Now they're going to get to a golden calf sooner rather than later, because you throw something into a fire and all of a sudden a calf comes out for some reason. Um, you know, but they're going to go back to the way in the days that she was born, in the days the nation was born. In the beginning, they were what? Essentially homeless and wandering in the wilderness. Now, they were wandering for an extended period because of the things that they've done, but they're going to be stripped of their property, their prosperity, the population, their privileges. Things are going to change when the Assyrians come in. It's not going to be the same, just as it wouldn't be the same if someone were to come and capture America. It says, and make her like a wilderness. Make her like a wilderness and make her like a parched land. Now, there's two ways that you could look at this per se. Was the wilderness a good thing for the Israelites when they come out of captivity? Punishment. It's punishment. Was it a good thing in some sense too? It was at the start until they got to the punishment part where they had to stay there longer because they were in captivity. And what they say when they were in the wilderness and they were wandering around, they're like, we should just go back to where? Egypt. Why? Well, it was so much better there. They had it better in the wilderness than they did. So he said he's going to make it like a parched land. Was it a parched land in the wilderness? And then what did God do? He fed them. He provided, right? And so he goes on, he says, I'm going to make it like a wilderness. I'm going to make her like a parched land. He's going to strip all these things from them. They're going to go back to where they originally were. He says, and kill her with thirst. It's all going to be taken. It's all going to be stripped from them. Sounds awful, doesn't it? You're going to lose everything you have. Would that be a good thing for them? It doesn't seem like it would be a good thing. I ask us this question. Would it be a good thing if America was stripped of all the things that we put our dependence on?
We don't think so.
We don't think so, but would it? In the long run, if we're playing a long game, not the short game, it would be a good thing. What if we were stripped of all the technology that we depend on instead of spending time with God? What if we were stripped of, say, all the sporting events that go on instead of spending more time with God? What if we were stripped of whatever in our life we have put before God? Would that be a good thing long term? Our life on earth might not seem as enjoyable. Heavy air quotes. But for the sake and for the cleanliness and for the purity of our soul, would it be good? It would be. Them being stripped of these things, them going through captivity and being let off, is going to end up being a good thing for them because they have to be stripped of these things in order to get their sight refocused because they're focusing on these false idols. You're going to have to lose these things in order to get back right and get your eyes focused because the other things that God has warned them of has not gotten them. To where they need to be refocused. And so now you're getting more extreme measures. And I think the same thing for us today. God could be giving us all these same warnings, and we could be just like them and just ignoring and ignoring and ignoring. And so we need to be examining our hearts and making sure we're in the right place as well. So in verse 4 it says, upon her children also I will have no mercy. Remember, that was one of the kids' names. Because they are children of whoredom. We talked about this slightly last week. The children are not going to be punished strictly because of the parents, but the children are going to face wrath because the parents and how they have raised. This is so true in today's world. Your kid is not going to inherit the sin from you, right? There's some people that are going to go out there and teach that. Your kids are not going to inherit the sin from you, but what they are going to inherit, per se, or learn, is how you're living life and what you make a priority and what you make important. And there could be someone here now that had parents that were not believers, and you came out of that, and great for you. We don't need to be setting our kids up for that. One of the biggest things that we face in the world today is broken families and broken homes and not strong parents raising their children. Right? We have grandparents raising kids because the parents don't, or vice versa. We have to have a stronger presence in our culture. We have to have a stronger presence in our households. If you're relying on the school system to teach your kids how they need to act in life, not a great idea. And that's not bashing school teachers or the school system, because there's plenty of good ones out there. But if you're depending on someone else to teach your kid how they need to be acting, you've got it backwards. Because the way that it should be is that you should be teaching them how they should be acting in the home. And then when they go to school, what are they teaching their friends? How to love Jesus and how to live for Jesus. You see the difference? You're not letting the world impact. You're impacting your child so your child can impact the world. It's a whole different mindset, right? And then that kid could even have an impact on a teacher. You never know. But we have to make sure that we have strong households. And so it says, upon her children also I will have no mercy because they are children of whoredom. The whole nation has gone after these false gods. This whole nation is in an adulterous relationship with God because they're saying one thing, but they're doing something completely different. It says, for their mother has played the whore, and she who conceived them has acted shamefully. Now here you have 7 my's, and you could add in a couple more, I guess, me's if you wanted to. But when you start to look at this, for her mother has played the whore, she who conceived them has acted shamefully. For she said, and this is, man, if we're not careful, this sounds like us. For I will go after my lovers, 1, who give me my bread, that's 2, and my water, 3, and my wool, 4, my flax, 5, my oil, 6, my drink, 7. Mine. All what? Mine. And I'm not sharing. Right? It's my water. That's my prosperity. That's my belongings. All my things. Is it? We're going to see later on. God says that's not the case. The money that we have right now is what? We're just borrowing it from God and using it, ought to be, using it for his kingdom, right? We're just temporary beholders of it. And so she says all these different things that are hers. And notice the part that she says, I'm going to go after my lovers who give me all these things. It sounds like sometimes when the Israelites are being like, yeah, we've got all of this manna for us, and they forget who actually provided the manna when they were in the wilderness. Verse 6, it says, therefore I will hedge up her way with thorns, and I will build a wall against her so that she cannot find her pass. Now, the wall part can get a little bit hard to tell exactly what they're talking about here, but could it be them building up extra defenses? Could it be so their walls are taller whenever they see Assyria coming in? Could it be the fact that they've basically walled themselves up with all of these fake things that they can't see the truth anymore? It could be a whole host of different things they've walled up so that they cannot find their past any longer. And then in verse 7 it says, she shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and she shall seek them, but shall not find them. When trouble comes to the northern kingdom and to the nation of Israel, when they start to face trouble, where is their current dependence on? Is it on God or is it on false idols? It's on false idols. When they see trouble, where is the first place they turn? God or the false idols? False idols. They're going to seek her. She's going to pursue her lovers, the false idols, but not overtake them. You can turn to that fake God, and guess what it's going to do? That little pretty gold statue is going to sit there on the shelf, and it's going to do nothing. Why? Because it's a statue made with hands. And it's a what? It's a false God. It ain't a real God. It's a false God. They're going to chase after these things. They're going to pursue these things, but they're not going to be able to overtake it. She shall seek them, but not find them. She's not going to get the answers that she's looking for. She's going to turn to these things when trouble comes, but you're not going to get any relief. You're not going to get any salvation out of that. You're not going to get any reprieve out of that. Why? Because it doesn't have the power. And that's what they've fallen into. You're worshiping, a golden calf. You're worshiping Baal instead of the living God who got you out of captivity earlier. And how silly can we be doing the exact same thing today? Then she shall say, this is the middle to end part of verse 7, I will go and return to my first husband, for it was better for me then than now. It's almost like when they came out of captivity, right? They said, boy, it was better for us back in Egypt. We ought to go back. Wrong. Here, they decide to go after false idols. They say, boy, for whatever reason, these false idols are not providing what we need. We better go back to what? What we first knew, because it was better then than now. Can you think of anyone in the New Testament that had that scenario happen in their life? When you look at Luke 15, 17 through 18, you have the story of the prodigal son. He says, but when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to them, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. What did he come to a realization of? I took all these possessions, all these wealthy things, and I left. I thought I knew better. He got out there, he realized he didn't know better. And was it better for him out there? So I had it better back when I was with what? The Father. He returns. Here, we need to go back because it was better for us then than it was now. Verse 8, this is where it goes back into the opposite of what we saw there in verse 5. And she did not know that it was I who gave her what? The grain, the wine, and the oil, and who lavished on her silver and gold, which they use for what? Baal. Now, did he technically give them the gold and the silver? In a roundabout way, right? Because they traded for things, right? Because he gave them all these different wine and grains and oils and all these different things, so they could they end up trading for it. And they had lavished themselves. My screen just spazzed out. They've lavished themselves with the silver and this gold. But what are they using it for? Making false idols, different things. God has given you mercy, and you spit in its face. God's given you forgiveness, spit in its face. God has given them what they need to live and survive, and He's provided for them for that day. And they take it and what? Worship a fake God. It sounds foolish, don't it? It is foolish. But we can do the exact same thing today. God has given us what we need for today. But are we using the time that He's given us, the resources that He's given us, to worship Him, to spend time with Him, and to live for Him? It's a different question. So it goes on, and here's the different ones. Notice now, God is going to use the word my. He's not going to use it as much. But He says in verse 9, therefore I will take back what? My grain and its time. Because who did the grain belong to in the first place? God did. So I'm going to take back my grain and its time, and my wine in its season. I'm going to take it back because it belonged to me anyways. He said, I'm going to take back my wool and my flax, which were to cover her nakedness. Now I will uncover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers. The nations around them, the people that they're depending on, all these different things are going to see that God has essentially left them. God's left this marriage. God's going to allow them to go into captivity. Their captors are going to see this. He's going to strip them of all these different things in the sight of them. And then it goes on and says, and no one shall rescue her out of my hand. Why? Because they're going into captivity. Someone could try, someone can't. He says, because you're not going to get out of, no one shall rescue her out of my hands. And so everyone is going to see the punishment that is coming upon them from God. And it says here in verse 11, and I will put an end to all her mirth, her feasts, her moons, or her new moons, her Sabbaths, and all her appointed feasts. Well, why are all those things going to come to an end? Well, because I'm taking away all of these other things that you need to even fulfill those. And so the new moon, which is going to be celebrated either monthly or quarterly, it's going to pass away. The Sabbaths, they're going to pass away because you're not going to be able to observe those. And then you even have to think about the fact that they're going to be taken into captivity, which is going to throw even more chaos into all of it, right? We get to come to church on Sundays and Wednesdays, and we can have other groups throughout the week. But if, I don't know, say Russia comes and takes over America and they put us into who knows what, are they going to allow us to just do that if they don't want us? Well, we might not have that opportunity. Everything gets turned upside down. And the reason it's getting turned upside down on them to start off with is because their priorities is wrong. Because their priority is off to start off with, their foundation's bad. Because the foundation is bad and the priorities are off, well, now everything else is going to crumble with it. The Assyrians never would have been able to take over if they would have corrected all these things the thousands of times that they were just mentioned beforehand. Dale?
One of the reasons they're going to lose everything when they go off into captivity, they're going to be dragged away, they're going to be scattered all over. So the equivalent would be like not just Russia coming in and taking over the United States, but they took all the Americans out of the United States and scattered them across Asia, where you're going to be in a foreign country with a language that you don't understand. And then you have to fend for yourself, so you're not going to be able to have any of those things because you're going to be so far removed from where you were.
Yeah, it's a new world coming. Whole new circumstance, whole new way of life. All because they put their hope and their trust in something that wasn't going to give them any ROI. It wasn't a lick of return on investment in what they were putting their hope in. It's a good point. Is there any other points or comments or thoughts? Feel free to talk. All right. I've explained it well, I guess, or so poorly you don't know what we're talking about. Let's see. So it goes on. He's going to end all these different new moons, these Sabbaths, all these appointed feasts. Then in verse 13 or verse 12, it says, and I will lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she said, now notice again, what is she going to say? What's the nation going to say? These are my wages, which my lovers have given me. He's going to lay waste all these vines and all these fig trees. They're counting them as wages for them. They're counting them as prosperity for them. They're counting them as something for them. And he says, I'm going to make them a forest. Boy, you've tilled the land, you've cleared the land, you've cultivated the land. You have all these fig trees, you have the different vines and the vineyards and all these different things. I'm going to come make it a forest. It's not going to be cultivated anymore. The area that you had to make all these crops, no more. The areas that you've cleared to make all those, you don't get to use those anymore. And all these things are going to change. He's now going to turn them into a forest. And he says, and the beasts of the field shall what? Devour them. Now later on, we're going to see something with a covenant with the beast of the field here in a handful of verses. But he says, and the beasts of the field shall devour them, and I will punish her for the feast days of what? Else. Because of the false gods that you're having the feast days, he said, I'm going to punish you for those when she burned offerings to them. Now notice the things that the nation is doing here. They're burning offerings, not to God. And they've adorned herself with her ring and her jewelry, not for God, and went after her lovers, not for God, and what? Forgot me. I don't know what your 3 or 4 things, maybe in your life or someone else's life or who knows what those first things could be. But you've gone after these things. You've done these things. And all these different things lead you to the final line, which would be, and you forgot me, declares the Lord. We cannot let that last line be something that applies to our life. The and forgot me part should not be a part of our life. Our name should never be attached to that statement. The Lord should never declare, they forgot me. You forgot me. It shouldn't apply to our personal life. It shouldn't apply to our congregations. It shouldn't apply to our nation, although it does. It shouldn't apply to the world because we shouldn't forget who created the world. We shouldn't forget the person who's offered up salvation for the world. But the world does. We can't let that apply to our life and to our congregations. We got to be stronger than that. We can't get into these other things that lead us to forget what is truly important in life. Because when you do all these other things in life, you get consumed by all these other things and you forget what is really important. What is really, really, really important? You could say the only thing, I guess you could say, that's really important in life. Ensuring that when this life is over, you end up where? In heaven. That is what is important. Don't forget that. When you're out making decisions that go contrary to the fact that you should be trying to get to heaven, don't do the things that are contrary. Don't forget what we're trying to accomplish in life. When life gets hard, don't forget that heaven is ahead of us. When the world is trying to get you to stumble and fall into traps, don't forget that we're trying to get to heaven. When the world says that you're all by yourself and you have no hope and there's just you're just never going to amount to anything, don't forget that you can be a child, you should be a child of God. Don't forget the promises. Don't forget the home that is awaiting you. Don't forget those things. Don't fall into false idols. You go and you start looking at the New Testament, what are we called to do for one another? Bring to remembrance. Called to remember things, remind each other of things. Why? So we don't forget. We can't be a forgetful nation. It goes on in verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will lure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. So he's going to try to allure the nation back, essentially, by the captivity and everything else. He's going to bring them into the wilderness. Now, if you remember, in a roundabout way, they don't feel like it right now, even though they're going to be here soon. The way that they're currently living their life now, they feel real free. Are they really free, though? They're captive. They don't feel captive. And they're soon actually going to be captives because Assyria is going to come in. But they feel like they're free. They feel like they're on top of the world, but they are captive to the things around them that are causing them to forget the Lord. They're captive to these false idols and to this prosperity and all these other things they're leaning on. They're captive to those things. When God got them out of captivity the first time, where did they go? The wilderness. They're going to come out of this captivity. He's going to take them into the wilderness. What did they learn in the wilderness the first time?
To depend on God.
To depend on God. What are they going to learn here when it's all said and done? It's going to take a while. But what are they going to learn here? To return to God, to depend on God, who is truly providing things. He says, I'm going to speak tenderly to her, try to allure them back. He says, and there I will give her her vineyards and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. This is a beautiful line when you really think about it. That valley means trouble. And you could say, if you want to make it more layman term today, make that valley of trouble a door of hope. Make the valley of trouble that you're going through a door of hope. In our life today, this valley of trouble that we're going through, this world that we're living through, what's the door of hope? Christ. Go and look at Psalm 23, right? Though you walk through the valley of shadow of death, right? God still provides a seat at the table for those that would come to the table. You can stay in the valley of trouble. You could wail along the whole time. We talked about that a couple lessons back, I guess, when you go back into some of the previous minor prophets. You can stay in the valley of decision and never make the decision, but you not making the decision is really you making a decision, if you catch my drift. Don't have to stay in the valley of trouble because there's a door of hope. And that's what he's saying here. He says, and make the valley of Achor a door of hope, and there she shall answer, as in the days of her youth, and at the time when she came out of the land of Egypt. Where's her dependence going to be? Where is her rejoicing going to be? When they came out of Egypt, how were they feeling when they got to the other side of the river, once he parted the sea? How were they feeling? Pretty good, right? Now, they forget this along the way. They were feeling pretty good. When they come out of this and they have this door of hope, they're going to remember that first feeling. They're going to go back to that. They're going to know where their hope is and who their deliverer is. Today's world, when you come out of that water, how are you feeling? Hopefully pretty good. Hopefully Dale or I or somebody else didn't hold you down there too long and scare you, right? Now, hopefully you're feeling pretty good, right? As you start to go throughout life, it is so easy, and I would almost even say common for some folks, to forget what that feeling feels like. We ought to always remember that feeling. It's the feeling of hope. So he says, and in that day, verse 16, and in that day declares the Lord, you will call me my husband, and no longer will you call me my Baal, right? So go after the false gods. For I will remove the names of the Baals from her mouth, and they shall be remembered by name no more. And it will make for them a covenant on that day with the beast of the field, the birds of the heaven, and the creeping things on the ground. And I will abolish the bow, the sword, and war from the land, and I will make you lie down in safety. Now, remember earlier, right, the beasts of the field are going to tear up the different vineyards and the things that they have going on. Here, he's going to have a covenant, right? They're going to make a covenant with the beasts of the fields, the birds of heaven, the creeping things on the ground. He's going to abolish the bow, the sword, and war from the land. What are you going to have? Peace. You can even say peace and prosperity, I guess you want to say, right? Now, you're going to have peace, stillness, protection. He says, I'm going to make you lie down in safety. Verse 19, and I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me, and you have 5 different things here. In righteousness, and in justice, in steadfast love, and in mercy. And I will betroth you to me in faithfulness. And you shall, what? Know the Lord. Now, what were they accused of earlier? Forgetting. You didn't know, you didn't understand. We talked about that 2 weeks back. They didn't know, they didn't understand, right? They forgot. You shall know the Lord, right? And he is going to have this connection with them because of righteousness and justice. Steadfast love, can't forget that. And mercy, Remember, they had the no more mercy? Now you have mercy and in faithfulness. Were they faithful to him? No. Was Gomer faithful to Hosea? No. Are we faithful to God? Supposed to be. Better be, right? Whichever way you want to look at it. If you're not, you should be. And if you are, keep it up and stay faithful, right? We ought to be faithful. We should be faithful now. He says, and in that day I will answer, declares the Lord. And this is a cool part when you really start to think about this. And this is just, these three verses right here really really lay out the power of God. And in that day I will answer, declares the Lord. I will answer the heavens. Now notice the hierarchy or like the list kind of coming down here. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. So start thinking about what all God controls here. And the earth shall answer the grain, the wine, and the oil. Who did God say those belong to earlier? Him. And they shall answer Jezreel. Remember, that's the God sowing, right, in the positive sense. And I will sow her for myself in the land. And I will have mercy on who? No mercy. And I will say to not my people, you are my people. Now, some of y'all may have the actual names of the two kids right there. He says, you are my people. And he shall say, you are my God. You start to look at this hierarchy, starts at heaven, works its way down to the earth. The earth listens to the messages it's now gotten from above. You have this sowing that is taking place, that God is going to sow for himself in this land. And now he is going to show mercy, and he is going to have his people. And his people are going to say, you are my God. The powerful statement at the very end. And that's something that all of us should be able to say. Because when you get to the part where you understand God and you know God and you have that relationship with God, you make that commitment to him, right? You've got that part down. You've got the base layer down. And you have this faithfulness, and you're not forgetting him like they're dealing with, right? You're not chasing after these false idols. This is what's so beautiful. It's the Bible, right? It's the Word, right? We get to read about God, and whose God is it? It's my God. Now it's your God too. It can be all of our God. But it's my God. See the difference in that? It's a personal relationship. It's my God. I'm his child. You're not just some random kid he picked off, off the corner down here. His child. He's your God. Personal relationship. And it applies to all of us. And then because we're in a personal relationship, what does that make all of us that are Christians? Family. See, I got a small family. You got a real big family. When you count in all of the faithful, right? A family ought to keep growing. And so if there's no questions or comments, I'll turn it to Brian for a song and then Michael for a devotional. But is there any thoughts or comments? Thank y'all. Save it for Sunday morning for Dale, if we're here, I guess.
The longer we live, the more significant or important events that we may experience in our life. I want you to help me out tonight with that. Give me some examples of important or significant events you may have experienced in your life. I only have 5 minutes, guys. So you got marriage. That's pretty significant. What? Birth of a child. First child is better. The rest are important too. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. What else?
Baptism.
Becoming a Christian is pretty important.
Only begotten child. Obviously, the day we're born, it's the day we graduate from high school or college or significant events in our lives. Winning a sports championship on a team in high school. Never forget that. I never experienced it, but I hear you never forget it. You may receive a professional license. That's a big deal. So a lot of study and effort went into getting a professional license. You may start a business, the birth of a grandchild. A person overcomes an addiction. It's a big day. A special birthday or anniversary. One I liked recently is the day you retire. Now I have 6 Saturdays and a Sunday. But not all of those events in our lives are positive, right? The day we may lose a family member is a significant or important day. Maybe the day a divorce is final. It's a significant day in our lives. Maybe the day we lost a pet. All of those are days that we are going to remember throughout our lives for one reason or another. Some are more important than others. But I'm going to submit to you the most important day for us, everyone in the world. The most important day of our lives is our last day on earth. Whether that's by death or by Jesus' second coming. But our last day on earth is the most important day of our lives. Becoming a Christian is important, but we can leave that relationship with Jesus sometime during our life. If we're a Christian the last day of our lives, we became a Christian somewhere earlier than that. No one knows when that last day will be. No one knows when Jesus is coming. Therefore, we must always be ready for that last day. You've heard that message a lot of times in your life if you've been to church throughout your years. Our last day on earth, though, completes the last chapter of our lives. Our spiritual condition, our relationship with Jesus is locked in and cannot be changed on that last day of our lives. There's no do-overs. There's nobody to put extra time on the clock for another play. There's nobody we can call for help. We're either saved or we're lost on that last day. We will either hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant," in Matthew 25:23, or we're going to hear, "I never knew you, depart from me," in Matthew 7:23. We're not going to hear, "Go over there to that other line and you'll get another chance." That's not going to happen. We will either have the glory of heaven or the torments of hell for eternity on that last day of our lives. A song I like sums it up this way: when it's all been said and done, there's just one thing that matters. Did I do my best to live for truth? Did I live my life for Jesus? We're going to sing an invitation song in just a moment. Brian's going to lead us in that. And that's a chance to give people that might be here this evening an opportunity to come forward and share with the church family a concern they have or a need they have in their lives. But I suspect most everyone here tonight is a regular participant in worship and most likely is prepared for that last day. You know what? That's great. But before we sing this song, let me leave us with a challenge. While our salvation status may be good, we all know someone close to us who doesn't have a good status with Jesus. And if their last chapter of their lives was tonight, they would not hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." It may be a family member, a close friend, a coworker. But here's the challenge. Identify that person in your life who needs a relationship with Jesus. Tell them or plant the seed of salvation in their life and tell them you'll be there with them for the journey. Sometime in the next couple of 3 weeks, try to do that. For John 6:40 says, "For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who looks on the Son and believes in him should have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day." The most important day of our life.